Hello, Internet. If you don't know me, my name is Grace. I'm 18 years old and I am an incoming college freshman. Today I'm going to talk about all kind of my sickness, my health story. I don't like calling it a journey because that seems like so cliche and that makes it sound like something about calling it a journey just bothers me for some reason. Let's jump into this. It's just gonna be about kind of my health struggles I've had and some resolution and answers I've found. I hope this video can do one of two things for you. Either one, you'll find a deeper level of understanding for people who go through stuff like this, sickness, that kind of stuff, a deeper understanding if you know me personally and came here through like my Facebook page, stuff about what it's been like the past few months, and probably some explanation for why I've been so distant from a lot of people and a lot of my hobbies. So an overall deeper understanding for what it's like to be so sick. Two, if you're stumbling on this video from the internet, I hope you can find some sense of like feeling like you're not alone and like that even though it doesn't feel like other people are going through what you're going through, that like other people have experienced similar situations, and hopefully find some comfort in knowing that, because I know I did throughout the time of myself being sick. Also, a disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. A lot of the like medical terms and like diagnosis that I'm going to talk about is in very layman's terms. This is not like, if you want to know what it is, Google it and read articles on it, but this is my personal take on it. Sorry fam, I haven't gone to med school, nor do I plan on it. Also, disclaimer, if you have a problem with me talking about poop and vomit, this is not your video. Anyways, let's jump into this. I've struggled with health problems throughout a lot of my life. In like first or second grade, I got diagnosed with acid reflux because I kept having little like ERPs is what my mom and I would call them. That wasn't really a big deal. In fifth grade, I had really bad stomach pain and diarrhea and stuff. And eventually we found out that I have fructose malabsorption, which is like fancy talk for being fructose intolerant. So my body doesn't process fructose, which is the natural sweetener that comes from fruits. Figuring that out was great because once I stopped eating those foods, I felt better and I never got sick. But it also was a big adjustment because fructose is in a lot of food, so initially it was kind of scary for a fifth grade Grace, but that now I'm so used to avoiding that kind of stuff that it doesn't even make me flinch. But when that happened to me in fifth grade, I kind of went through the whole loop of medical testing before they did the fructose test, which hindsight 2020 makes me a little angry because I got my first colonoscopy in fifth grade. I am a princess. Fast forward to 7th grade, I decided to go out for volleyball, and on the first day of practice, I got dehydrated, so I went home and I stayed home from school that day, and I was sick, and then I started throwing up a bunch, and it didn't stop. So basically, I would throw up after every meal, and it wasn't voluntary, I wasn't forcing it, it would just happen, like my body had to throw up after I ate. I went to a bunch of doctors, I went to doctors in a hospital that's really renowned in my state, and I had a terrible experience. I had a bunch of tests done, did the whole colonoscopy thing again, did a bunch of other blood tests and that kind of stuff, and they just weren't finding answers. It was bad, but I don't remember it being terrible yet because I kind of had like a lot of good coping mechanisms. Junior high isn't really like too exhausting, like I can handle it. And it was like, I was just throwing up, but there wasn't a lot of like pain or lasting effects. I think that lasted for probably like a few months or so, but what happened was my brother got sick a few months after me and his problems were much more severe than mine. He ended up getting brain surgery. That's a whole nother story. So I got pushed to the side. My parents had to deal with him first, and I just sucked it up and I went on with my life, which at the time I was mad about, but I understand now looking back on it. And eventually this like vomiting problem just went away. Occasionally I would have spells of like a few weeks or a few days, or sometimes I think the longest one was like a month where it would come back and I would throw up. So a lot of people would assume it's because I'm stressed, which it is not. That is that is the worst thing you can say to me. I am someone who loves being busy and I love having stuff to do, and like stress sucks, but it doesn't cause the physical illness that I went through. As I started getting into high school, I started having more just like health side effects. So I'd have frequent stomach pain. That was just something I would live with, that a lot of times after I eat, I would be cramped, or like digestion would be an issue. And I lived with stomach cramps for a very long time. Intense bloating. I would bloat so bad after I ate. There's literally a picture of me where I looked pregnant and my stomach would bloat up huge. I also had problems with my white blood cell count. My white blood cell count is naturally low, and because of that I had mono, and then I caught a few similar viruses. I had a stomach ulcer once. I kind of had all these random illnesses, but also the everyday effects of like stomach pains, stomach cramps, and the bloating. Finally, by the middle of my junior year, I was tired all the time. I felt like my white blood cell count was low because I kind of gotten used to what that would feel like if that dropped because I was tired all the time. And my bloating and cramping had gotten to the point where it was really starting to interfere with my life more than that stuff should. And I went to a pediatrician who referred me to an allergist in Wisconsin, and we went up there and she prescribed me these allergy drops. She told me I had sensitivities to gluten, lactose, yeast, and sugar. So I went on this full-out cleanse diet, and I started these allergy drops that were supposed to help build up my tolerance to the food. When I avoided all these foods, the first week and a half was awful, but then after that I felt really good and I had a lot more energy and I felt more awake. But in reality, if you avoid all those foods, that's how you're gonna feel. Like, I don't think it was as much of a like reflection on me having health problems and them disappearing as it was of such a drastic diet change is going to make your body feel better. After the cleanse ended, I went back to eating normal, and it wasn't really terrible. I had stomach pain a lot and the bloating stuff, but that was stuff I was so used to at that point that I was finally feeling like awake again, so I was like, whatever. Now we fast forward to senior year, second semester. This is where it all goes down. I'd been feeling sick for about a week, but it was a super busy week in my life, so I just pushed it aside because that's who I am. I'm like, I don't take time off in my life. So I was like, whatever, I'll deal with it on the weekend. And then the weekend came and I slept so hard. Like, I literally slept for like 15 hours or something, and I can barely get a full night's sleep, so that was insane for me. I went to a play and I like overheated there, and I remember having really bad stomach and like diarrhea problems. And I went home and I was running a fever and I felt gross, so I stayed home from school the next day. Eventually those kind of flu-like symptoms went away, but the vomiting was still there. It was so much worse than it was back in junior high. Like, it was awful throwing up. It was terrible. I don't really know how to explain a terrible situation to you, but I threw up all the time. If I ate a meal, it happened anywhere from like 15 to 30 minutes afterwards. I'd be in the bathroom puking for literally an hour. Obviously, it's my second semester of senior year. I couldn't just like cop out and like quit. So thus began 3 months of absolute hell for me. I would wake up in the morning, go to school for the day, I would drink Ensure for lunch, and I would drink Gatorades throughout the day just to keep my like sugar level up so I wouldn't pass out. And then I would come home from school and I would either sleep right after school until dinner, or I would eat right when I came home. And then after I eat, I would throw up and I would spend the next hour puking. So by the time I got after like dinner puking, I'd go to sleep. School-wise, the semester was a complete joke for me. I wasn't doing my homework at all. My teachers knew about it. My teachers were great about it, but like, there was honestly, like, I showed up to school and it was like, why are you even here? Because I would go through the day like a zombie. I was lightheaded all of the time. My vision would start to blur, which is like a cool effect of being malnourished, is that sometimes I just couldn't see randomly. I had stopped doing homework, caring about school, which is very unlike me. And I would also be gone all the time to go to different doctors and get different tests done. I literally would fall asleep in the middle of my classes. I would spend a bunch of time in the guidance counseling office talking to counselors because not only was my physical health terrible, but my mental health was like, pfft. And I lost a lot of friends because, first off, friendship is a two-way street. And like, I found out a lot of my friendships were only like, I was the only one making the effort, but also people don't really know what to do in this type of situation, so they end up doing nothing. Which is terrible because all I wanted was someone who I could sit and complain to, and I didn't really have too many of those people in my life. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that it was the most debilitating thing to ever happen to me. I went from like being very social, being in all the school activities, doing really good in school, to just doing nothing and only being at school doing nothing and then going home and sleeping. Luckily, my school, I had great teachers who are like amazing dealing with me going through this and understood what I was going through. And I also had great guidance counselors like I talked about. I spent so much time in the counseling office second semester. It was like my home. So I went to a ton of doctors locally, got a lot of tests done, again, did the whole fun colonoscopy, I got x-rays, I got upper GI tests, I got an upper camera endoscopy, blood tests. I got so much blood taken from me, I don't know how I have any left. I had some very terrible experiences with doctors locally. I could make a whole nother video about all kinds of doctor issues I've had and all the negative experiences I've had with doctors, because it's insane. Somehow I made it through that like almost 3 months and I graduated, and after graduation I came home and I literally slept for like a week. And then finally comes my appointment at Mayo Clinic. Now, I had gotten into Mayo months ago, but if you don't know what that is, Mayo Clinic is in Rochester. It's like a very like worldwide known hospital, and it's so hard to get an appointment there. Finally, my appointment came in June, and from the second we walked into the doctor's office, I could completely tell it was a whole different experience from what I had been getting back home. The difference between the doctors at Mayo Clinic versus the doctors I'd been seeing locally is like mind-blowing. So after my initial appointment with the Mayo doctors, I had a bunch of tests there. So I think I had like 1 test that day, and then I had 3 tests in the next week and a half period or so. And then finally, after those tests, it was like the day after I got my last test done, my mom and I were relaxing in the morning and my doctor called me and gave me a diagnosis. Do you know how quick that is? Like literally like 15 hours after I'd gotten home from my last test, and they called me telling me it was wrong. So here's the moment you've all been waiting for. They found 3, count 'em, 3 things wrong with me. The first thing is pelvic floor dysfunction, which basically means the muscles in my pelvic area were all out of whack and they were acting like they were constipated all the time. So they would send a message to my brain like, you're constipated, you don't have room for food, don't eat, like we can't take food right now. And that my brain would send that message back to my upper GI, and then I would throw up. The second thing is functional dyspepsia, which is a fancy word for my stomach muscles were also messed up, because when you start eating, your stomach muscles are supposed to relax and let the food in, and my stomach muscles would tense up and they would say we don't want food in. My take on it is that it kind of like started from the muscles at the very bottom and it worked its way up to the muscles at the top. And then the third thing is rumination syndrome, which is basically the idea that everything I ate would come back up. Ruminating is what I'd been doing. I'd been calling it vomiting, but turns out it's ruminating, because ruminating, this is a little nasty. Vomiting is like stomach acid comes up with it, and ruminating is just like straight up food comes out of your mouth. Rumination disorder is common in like babies and kids and stuff, but not as common in adults, and it's a little different in adults. So if you're gonna read up on this, be careful about what you read, because the stuff that's true for babies isn't always true for the older people who have it. A fun fact on this though, on average, people see 5 doctors over 2.5 years before they get properly diagnosed with this. Another important thing about these diagnoses is that there's no known cause for this stuff happening. So some people in my life said it was stress. That's not true. I'm not stressed. Nobody knows what causes this. Sometimes they say it comes on after a virus. In my case, I'm gonna guess that's what happened, because I had that kind of like flu bug and then my body whacked out. So from getting those diagnoses, we went to how are we gonna deal with these? To treat the pelvic floor dysfunction, I got to do a glamorous 1.5 weeks of biofeedback therapy, which I call poop therapy for short, because that's basically what it is. I had a 1.5 weeks where I would go in 3 times a day, like the physical therapist rehabilitation center in Mayo, and I would go back in an office and I would spend about 30 minutes training my butt. Not what every kid does the summer before their freshman year of college. I'm gonna spare most of the details on that one, but that's the low and short of what I did for a 1.5 weeks. After I'd completed that therapy program, I'd started to feel a little bit better. My bottom half was starting to sort itself out. I started having more regular bowel movements, and I was able to keep down small amounts of food. So I would eat granola bars, bananas, that kind of stuff, which was so freaking exciting to me. Y'all have no idea. But I was still having issues with meals, so after I'd done my follow-up appointment with my doctor, he put me on a medicine called Ibuprofen. So this is a little weird. You have to order it from Amazon Prime because it's a German medicine that has an ingredient that's not approved by the FDA. But it's an herbal type medicine, so it's not sketchy. Also, my doctor recommended it to me, so I'm feeling pretty safe about getting my medicine from Amazon Prime. But basically, I take 30 drops of it before a meal and I mix it with water and I just shoot it back, and it relaxes my stomach muscles. It tastes like canker sore medicine, so that's kind of how I explain it to people, is that it's like canker sore medicine for my stomach because it relaxes the muscles in my stomach. And I'd started taking this and I didn't really see an effect, and then I upped my dosage just a little bit, and that was the magic number of drops for me, and I started keeping food down. My doctor also suggested lifestyle changes to help my pelvic muscles kind of stay and regulate digestion. So like drinking hot caffeine in the morning and eating high fiber diet, which, you know, like every doctor is always like, yeah, do more good things for your body, and you're like, whatever. But these are literally like on days where I don't eat high fiber, like good breakfast with hot caffeine, I feel gross. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm feeling good. I have my symptoms under control. It ended up being about 6 months of me being sick, and I definitely learned a lot from that. If you want to see a separate video on the things I've learned or like my reflections on it, let me know. As far as some of the chronic stomach pain issues with, I'm always gonna have to live with that, and I'm always gonna have to keep special like track on like if I get the flu, if afterwards my body goes out of whack again, then I'm gonna have to go like, okay, well, let me retrain my stuff. I didn't mention this, but another part of my thing is that I get to keep doing my biofeedback sessions at home for the next 3 months, which means I get to do it in college. But honestly, like if I feel good, I will do that. Whatever. A lot of it's just staying in tune with my body and knowing like maybe you should eat a healthier diet, or like maybe I should avoid these kind of foods for the most part, unless I'm really wanting to like treat myself and indulge, which trust me, your girl loves her food. I frequently indulge in good foods. But I think that is everything I wanted to go over in this video. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment them in the down bar or message me personally. I will gladly answer them. My whole philosophy on this has been, I'd rather people come to me and ask me than say, like, start spreading rumors. But that is it. Bye.